Today, Shraddhalu sent me a a Japanese girl who's so open. I'm the first Japanese girl I've met in Aurobindo. Yeah, yeah. Ah, so in this powerful canto, we have seen that Ashwapati is receiving all these great experiences from the highest. And we're down within 5 lines of the bottom. I'll begin with the line, immense realities took on a shape. 5 lines from the very bottom of page 40. So we see from this line, which ends with a colon, because Sri Aurobindo wants to share much more with us, that these immense realities, which we don't usually see because they are in the formless, in the transcendent, and now they have come down into Ashwapati, whom we know as Sri Aurobindo, and they've taken a shape. And they're looked out from the shadow of the unknown, the bodiless namelessness that saw God born. Now that's a little bit of a difficult line, but it's, if we understand that God is being born into the human form, then it's very clear. God is not being born as we are born, because he has chosen through the mother to create this earth and to create all the stars and galaxies, constellations. Sri Aurobindo tells us it's to see himself in this million or billion-bodied now existence, and to experience himself in so many ways other than the transcendent, immutable, imperishable. So we're seeing that now. And so he's attempting to gain from the mortal's mind and soul a deathless body and a divine name. Oh, so beautiful. And that's how the canto, now we go into the next one, 41. Now we're in a very, very high plane, and we get the first line, the immobile lips the great surreal wings, the visage masked by superconscious sleep, the eyes with their closed lids that see all things, appeared of the architect who builds in trance. Now, this architect who builds in trance, we find in some of Sri Aurobindo's works, is known as Hiranyagarbha. He's the architect. There's another one later on in Savitri, Virat, who builds his campfires. But now we look at this. So the great surreal wings gives us this idea of this movement of this being. Immobile is unable to move, fixed. Surreal is the quality of a dream, something that's fantastic, almost unreal. The visage, the face, marked by superconscious sleep, the eyes with their closed lids that see all things, appeared of the architect who builds in trance. Now, we have to go into this architect, whom Sri Aurobindo calls the self that creates all these forms is Hiranyagarbha, the luminous or creatively perceptive soul. And that's in the synthesis of yoga. Now, in the future poetry, he tells us that Hiranyagarbha is the luminous mind of dreams, looking through gross forms created by Virat. Those forms to see his own images behind them. Now, many years ago, an ashramite wrote a glossary and index of proper names in Sri Aurobindo's works. And I'd like to read that to you. So, Hiranyagarbha is the golden embryo in Hindu cosmology, the name given to the golden-hued egg which floated on the surface of the primeval waters. In time, the egg divided into two parts. What are those two parts? The golden top, half of the shell becoming the heavens, and the silver lower half, the earth. Isn't that a beautiful image, huh? Hiranyagarbha. And so he says God imaginative and therefore creative, the spirit in the middle of the dream state, the Lord of dream life, who takes from the ocean of subconsciously intelligent spiritual being the conscious psychic forces which he materializes or encases in various forms of gross living matter. So we see that this Hiranyagarbha, this architect who builds in trance, notice in trance, huh? We have first of all the visage. Do you have the page? It's 41 now at the top. The line is the immobile lips, the great surreal wings.
That's the bottom of 40.
You know, it's almost beyond our understanding to see these beings, especially Hiranyagarbha and Virat. For me, the visage masked by superconscious sleep, the eyes with their closed lids that see all things, appeared of the architect who builds in trance, and that is Hiranyagarbha. Now we continue on. The original desire, born in the void, peered out. He saw the hope that never sleeps, the feet that run behind a fleeting fate, the ineffable meaning of the endless dream. Look at the alliteration in that line. Feet, fleeting fate. The feet that run behind a fleeting fate. The ineffable is incapable of being expressed or described. The ineffable meaning of the endless dream. So that has peered out, and Ashwapati sees the hope that never sleeps. And I have to go back a little bit and speak about this original desire, desire born in the void. Now, in general, Sri Aurobindo writes in one of his letters on yoga, desires come from outside, enter the subconscious vital, and rise to the surface. It is only when they rise to the surface and the mind becomes aware of them that we become conscious of the desire. It seems to us to be our own because we feel it thus rising from the vital into the mind and do not know that it came from outside. Now this original desire, he capitalizes the D, and he says that the vital is the being behind the force of life. We have learned, reading much earlier, that in the transcendent, immutable, there is no creation. No creation at all. Everything is perfect, static, immobile. How does creation occur? Out of the formless, the divine creates form. And that's these billions of people, all of different sizes and shapes and inner progress, etc. And therefore, he calls it in the life divine the lever by which the divine life principle effects its end of self-affirmation in the universe. So now we see that when he capitalizes desire, it's not the desire that comes to us. It's, well, I'll tell you, I think it was my first meeting with Sri Aurobindo. And he asked me to sit next to him. And the first thing he says to me, very humorously, what a lucky fellow you are to be able to realize all your desires. And I knew then that it was aspirations, not regular desires, that my aspirations could be realized. Well, I got a long way to go yet, but I'm still working on it now. So we see this ineffable meaning of the endless dream. Hardly for a moment glimpsed, viewless to mind, because the mind is incapable of seeing this. We can talk about it, we can read about it, we can feel something within us, but the mind is, well, let me read a letter from Sri Aurobindo because it's so important. He writes, the mind, in the ordinary use of the word, covers indiscriminately the whole consciousness. For man is a mental being and mentalizes everything. But in the language of this yoga, the words mind and mental are used to connote specially the part of the nature which has to do with cognition and intelligence, with ideas, with mental or thought perceptions, the reactions of thought to things, with the truly mental movements and formations, mental vision and will that are part of the intelligence. So mind is a consciousness essentially that measures, that limits, and analyzes and synthesizes, but it is not what we want. The moment we enter into the spiritual planes of existence, the first realization we have is the higher mind. So we have leapt from the physical mind into the higher mind. And the higher mind has a very wide vision also, sees things as we cannot see them with the physical mind. And so it's just the beginning of the spiritual planes of consciousness. Because the moment we rise from the higher mind to the illumined mind, it's a much greater light. And then the intuitive mind is like the thing is just there and we see it. There's no explanation needed. And then, of course, comes the overmind and finally the supermind. So we continue. As if a torch held by a power of God, the radiant world of the everlasting truth glimmered like a faint star bordering the night, above the golden overmind's shimmering ridge. Now we see how far Ashwapati has gone. Huh? He's seeing that this is above the golden overmind's shimmering ridge. We see it shimmering because it's emitting a kind of light, not the full light, but it's the overmind. The supermental is the full light, the full sun. So I'd just like to read a little bit to you on the overmind from Sri Aurobindo in quite a long letter to a disciple. The overmind is a sort of delegation from the supermind. This is a metaphor only, he writes, which supports the present evolutionary universe in which we live here in matter. So important. If supermind were to start here from the beginning as the direct creative power, a world of the kind we see now would be impossible. It would have been full of the divine light from the beginning. There would be no involution in the inconscience of matter, consequently no gradual striving evolution of consciousness in matter. So only because the supermental didn't start here, we see that there is an involution, a descent of the divine force, and an evolution, our aspiration from below, that has created this universe. And he says, a line is therefore drawn between the higher half of the universe of consciousness, parada, and the lower half, aparada. The higher half is constituted of Sat, Chit, Ananda, Mahas, the supermental. The lower half of mind, life, matter. This line is the intermediary overmind, which though luminous itself, keeps from us the full, indivisible, supramental light. Depends on it, indeed, but in receiving it, divides, distributes, breaks it up into separated aspects, powers, multiplicities of all kinds, each of which it is possible by a further diminution of consciousness, such as we reach in mind, to regard as the soul or the chief truth, and all the rest as subordinate or contradictory to it. And in another letter, he says, the overmind is the highest of the planes below the supramental. So there's so much here, but that would take an hour to read. So, even were caught as through a cunning veil, the smile of love that sanctions the long game, the calm indulgence and maternal breasts of wisdom suckling the child laughter of chance. We'll go into that a little bit. You know, cunning is a very interesting word. It's artfully subtle or shrewd. It implies some kind of skill in concealing or disguising something. And now Ashwapati catches this. Even were caught as through a cunning veil, the smile of love that sanctions the long game. Mother tells us so much about love that it is, in one place she says, it is only divine love that will change the world. No power, no peace, no calm. They'll all be after the descent, the full descent of the divine love. The calm indulgence and maternal breasts. The indulgence is the benign leniency or permissiveness, tolerance. And what is this but wisdom suckling the child laughter of chance? And Sri Aurobindo tells us that wisdom has nothing to do with reason. Reason divides, fixes details, and contrasts them. Wisdom unifies, marries contrasts in a single harmony. This is in his essays, Divine and Human. And Mother tells us, wisdom cannot be acquired except through union with the divine consciousness. Today, Shraddhalu sent a Japanese girl to me, and she was so open that the moment we began to concentrate, the force just flowed down. And at one point she broke into tears when the psychic just spilled out. So I can tell you now, and I'm sure that many of you have experienced it also, the force has never been this strong in my life. Yes, I knew Mother for 12 years. I met Sri Aurobindo many times, but these are gifts, not something we earn. What we earn is the descent of peace, aspiration, devotion, joyous surrender. And this is the first Japanese person I've met in Aurobindo or in the ashram, other than Amrit, who was American Japanese. So we see this chance here, this wisdom suckling the child laughter of chance, because there is no chance. Sri Aurobindo says chance is not in this universe. The idea of illusion is itself an illusion. And then he tells us very importantly, there was never illusion yet in the human mind that was not the concealing shape and disfigurement of a truth. Wow. What we call chance is a play of the possibilities of the infinite. So now we see that silence, the nurse of the Almighty's power, the omniscient hush, womb of the immortal Word, and the creative eye of eternity. We'll have to look a little bit about this.
And of the timeless, the still brooding face.
Did I miss it?
Yeah.
Okay. Of wisdom. Where does it occur? Before silence, the nurse?
After the omniscient hush,
Okay.
womb of the immortal Word.
Yeah, that's probably
Next
where.
line.
And the timeless, the still brooding face. This is, of course, the divine presence, the Ishvara, at the very highest. Timeless. No time exists for the divine. It exists for us because we are creatures of time. But not when we enter these planes of consciousness, we will also feel timelessness. An interesting comment from Mother about the yoga. She says, you must feel that it must be done today or in centuries to come. And the timeless, the still brooding face.
Could you comment on the brooding face?
Pardon?
Could you comment on the brooding face? Why is
Well, brooding in this sense is, we could say, like the hen and the eggs. The hen sits on the eggs so quietly, keeps them warm until they hatch. And this is the still brooding face over all of us. But it's timeless also. There's no time to it. It's always there for us. Please excuse my voice. Been a bit of a rough time. And the creative eye of eternity. Eternity, of course, Sri Aurobindo wants us to know that the timeless spirit is not necessarily a blank. It may hold all in itself, but in essence, without reference to time or form or relation or circumstance, perhaps in an eternal unity. Eternity is the common term between time and the timeless spirit. What is in the timeless, unmanifested, implied, essential, appears in time, in movement, or at least in design and relation, in result and circumstance. These two then are the same eternity, or the same eternal in a double status. They are a twofold status of being and consciousness, one an eternity of immobile status, the other an eternity of motion in status, and that's from the life divine. Okay, now we have these next lines. I'll just read this one section and then we'll break. The inspiring goddess entered a mortal's breast. Now, this is Sri Aurobindo, as I say, in the persona of Ashwapati, made there her study of divining thought. Now, divining is an interesting word. Basically, he's used it here as an adjective, but it pertains to the Supreme Being. So it's, we could say, relating or emanating from or being the expression of the Supreme Being. And so we can understand divining by perceiving by intuition or insight. Oh, I divined something the other day. You see, we would use that when we speak of something that we've found out that was of supreme importance. Made there her study of divining thought and sanctuary of prophetic speech. Essays divine and human. The prophetic or revealing power sees the substance. The inspiration perceives the right expression. Neither is manufactured, nor is poetry really a poesis or composition, nor even a creation, but rather the revelation of something that eternally exists. Wow. The ancients knew this truth and used the same word for poet and prophet, creator and seer, sophos, vates, kavi, and sat upon the tripod seat of mind. Wow. Now, I have to go over these three things from Alok, Nolini, and Madhav Pandit. Alok calls them the tripod seat of mind, the three powers on which mental processes stand: reason, imagination, and sense perception. Nolini, very short as always, refers to the three elements or stages of mind, which Alok mentioned. Madhav, the mind is pictured in terms of a seat with three legs: the physical mind, sense mentality, vital mind, desire mind, dynamic mentality, reason, thought mentality. The normal human mind has these three layers. All was made wide above, all lit below. And I'm going to save that.
The last one was Madhav Pandit?
Yes.
The last one was Madhav
Yeah.
Pandit.
I'm going to save this next extraordinary line for next week, because we've exceeded a little bit of our time. If we can concentrate for a few moments, and we'll do Om after that.
What about reading?
And the reading, yes. Will you read for us today? Sure, very good.
Should I read?
From the beginning.
What we just read?
from page 40, the last line,
Immense?
and then 41 up to where we just reached.
Let's see if I can figure out where we were at. Up to here. From here to here. Yeah, okay. Immense realities took on a shape. There looked out from the shadow of the unknown. The bodiless namelessness that saw God born and tries to gain from the mortal's mind and soul a deathless body and a divine name. The immobile lips, the great surreal wings, the visage masked by superconscious sleep, the eyes with their closed lids that see all things, appeared of the architect who builds in trance. The original desire born in the void peered out. He saw the hope that never sleeps, the feet that run behind a fleeting faith, the ineffable meaning of the endless dream. Hardly for a moment glimpsed viewless to mine, as if a torch held by the power of God. The radiant world of the everlasting truth glimmered like a faint star bordering the night above the golden overminds shimmering ridge. Even were caught as though a cunning veil, the smile of love that sanctioned the long game, the calm indulgence and maternal breath of wisdom suckling the child laughter of chance, silence, the nurse of the Almighty's power, the omniscience hushed womb of the immortal word, and of the timeless, the still brooding face, and the creative eye of eternity. The inspiring goddess entered a mortal's breast, made there her study of divining thought, and sanctuary of prophetic speech, and sat upon the tripod seat of mind. All was made wide above, all lit below.
Om, 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 Om. Om. Won't be able to embrace anyone tonight. You don't want to get this.
No, we don't. Get anything. Thank you.
Pass it on quickly to the ineffable.